Good evening, class. My name is Jonathan Mencher, and I'll be discussing about the rise of cloud computing as my case study. There are 5 topics that we'll be discussing as part of this. The first are the advantages and the disadvantages that you would see if a company put their data and their technology in the cloud. Second would be which companies win and lose that are upstream and downstream as part of this. Third is what is the pressure that would push a dominant cloud operating system to come into play. Fourth is we'll look at each of the 3 leaders in the cloud sector today, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, and we'll go through what their advantages are. And finally, we'll talk about what the ethical and social responsibilities are as part of cloud providers and what new technology and things they need to worry about. It's actually very interesting how Amazon did come about into the cloud world. As you know, Amazon is very busy throughout the year, but they are exceptionally busy in the December timeframe. So in order to account for this, what they needed to do was add significant hardware in the December months for maybe only being used for 4 to 6 weeks. That's great for that short amount of time, but that's a lot of capital being spent, which is sitting idle. So the executive team and management team over at Amazon basically came up with a play to say, hey, how do we monetize this capital and almost rent out the servers to other companies? That's exactly what they did. They came up with the concept of AWS or Amazon Web Services, where they would have other clients and other customers using their hardware to help them drive their business. So it was pretty interesting and a pretty genius move that Amazon had as part of this. So there's some pretty significant advantages for a company, small and large, to move into the cloud, the largest being cost. A small company, it's a very good idea, cost effective, to move data into the cloud or your applications into the cloud. Say I'm building a website and I don't want to go to a third-party provider to design the website or host it there, and you want a little more flexibility. What you can do is you can actually put a request into Amazon or at Microsoft or Google and request 10 servers. Why is this cost effective? First, you're actually only paying in cloud providers for the amount of time you're using this, using the hardware based on size. And in order to set up a data center, it's very, very significant in terms of the startup costs, high entry point. For example, you need to get a physical location, whether you're renting it from a colo or buying your own. You need a network backbone, you need a SAN or storage area network. Very expensive upfront costs on top of buying your servers. A smaller company may only want to invest $20,000 worth of hardware to get going, and clearly you can't build a data center on $20,000. So this is a great way for a startup or a small company to get moving. A larger company, like any financial firm or somebody to that effect who wants to save money, can look to remove labor by taking your infrastructure team and actually offloading that by saying, we're gonna put this in Amazon, put this in Microsoft, put this in Google, somewhere in the cloud, and that team's not needed anymore. You could have a number of data centers throughout the country. You could have 5, 10 data centers where you're sprawled out, and you maybe want to consolidate down to 2. Obviously, data center charges are significantly expensive, so this allows you to put quite a bit of the hardware. If you're not all ready to do it in one shot, you can scale down. You can save money on your storage, your network, your labor. Pretty significant savings that will come as part of this. Your second factor, which is a huge advantage, is time to market. In a lot of cases, if I was to buy a physical server, it's going to take maybe 6 to 8 weeks before I can get that online. You need to get a quote from a vendor. You need to get that quote approved through your PO system. You need delivery. It could take 3 to 4 weeks. You need to then get it racked and stacked. You need to get your OS team and your server team to actually build it. Cabling, there's quite a bit of work that needs to get done, quite a bit of lead time. However, in the cloud, you can typically, once you're up and running, you can typically get cloud OSs, and whether it's Windows, Linux, something to that effect, online in a matter of minutes. This gives your development team and application team a very significant advantage, where they'll be up and running only in a couple weeks, and really ready to go based on the size of their application. The third are the services that are embedded within these cloud providers. One example is Amazon SNS. What that does is that actually gives the user pre-built applications to call. So if I'm writing a mobile application and I have a mobile app, in-house that my development team uses, and I want to add a feature to send out blast text messages for a new promotion, something to that effect, your development team actually only needs to make an application call into Amazon and say, hey, I want to use this service and send out this text message to these 500 people. You don't have to go ahead and have code written to do that by your internal team. It's already written there for you. Additionally, there is a technology in Amazon called RDS. RDS allows you to have a self-managed database, whether it's SQL, whether it's DynamoDB. There's a few different options within the cloud, and you don't need a DBA team running it. You don't have to worry about your backups, your maintenance jobs. It's significantly lower cost in terms of your labor. One main disadvantage of being in the cloud is you essentially become married to it once you have a significant amount of your data and applications in it. Obviously, once you make a large investment and put your data and applications there, it's very hard to say, okay, I'm going to actually now leave the cloud. You could be a few years out from doing that. So what happens if your cloud provider now doubles the price, triples the price? You're almost held hostage. So that's a risk, proposal that you'd have to really look at with your management team. I can't even go from Amazon to Microsoft quickly. That would be a multi-year migration, depending on the size of your data and the size of your application footprint in the cloud. Secondly, when you have a internal IT team, you have a different level, or you could have a different level of dedication because it's something that's near and dear to them. So if my application and my server's down and it's my business, I'm working tirelessly to get that up. If you're in the cloud, it's a third party who has a number of different clients who could be down during an outage. So clearly you may not have the same level of dedication in order to do this. Now, who's going to benefit from being in the cloud? Virtualization is a very strong technology that's used in the cloud because basically it allows you to run multiple OSs on the same piece of hardware. So when a customer requests an OS to be built on a piece of hardware, you're not actually buying a server, you're buying a piece of the server or a slice of the server. So the two largest virtualization software companies are VMware. Used to be owned by EMC, now they've spun off a piece of it. And then secondly, Microsoft has Hyper-V. So those two companies will definitely be in great shape in terms of a benefit. Who's going to lose are hardware providers, so especially on the Intel front, because that's what most of the cloud providers do. Microsoft doesn't really make servers, but companies like Dell and HP, large Intel hardware providers, will definitely feel a bit of pain because you will not need as much hardware in order to sustain your workload. For a dominant cloud OS to emerge, there's a few things that would be looked at. One is price. Obviously, for any business, the price war is in play. So if you can come up with a solution and an infrastructure that will make your end-to-end technology stack cheaper than you would doing it in-house, that will drive senior leadership to move into the cloud. Secondly is the ease of automation. As you scale up throughout your batch cycle at night, if I only need 4 hours of heavy workload as opposed to 24 hours and you can have this all seamlessly automated, that would definitely allow someone to emerge there. And then third are the services, typically what we spoke about earlier about SNS, RDS, the other embedded services that are in Amazon, Microsoft, Google. Whoever can kind of become the leader on that will be in great shape because it'll save development labor time. If we compare the cloud leaders, Azure, AWS, Google, Azure is run by Microsoft, so you have the reputation of Microsoft as that's synonymous with Windows. Pretty good advantage there. And then secondly, integration with a lot of the software. So a lot of software that's typically used, Microsoft Office or Microsoft SQL Server, is customized to work with Microsoft and Windows. So you're pretty much synonymous in your stack. Secondly, AWS. Currently, their big advantages are, one, they have the largest market share today And then secondly, they have a pretty big security and configuration options that security teams and development teams do love. Finally, Google definitely has a ways to go. If you look at the Gartner chart, they are not in the top right corner like Microsoft and AWS are, but they're putting a lot of time into their cloud, into their cloud machine learning sector. Ways to go, but if they can master that, that would be a pretty big responsibility, or a pretty big advantage, I should say. Finally, what responsibilities are new as part of this cloud is, one, you're putting a lot of data in the cloud. You're putting PII data in the cloud. This is personal identifiable information, someone's social security number, credit card information, account number, things like that. Clearly something that you don't want to get out into the world. If that was to happen, huge reputational impact to the client. Basically, these customers or these cloud providers will have a pretty strong ethical and social responsibility to make sure that data is protected from hackers. So as a whole, we went through the advantages, disadvantages, and why cloud is coming and growing pretty significantly. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll be seeing a pretty significant shift in the way that IT professionals will be viewing how to host their technology and applications. I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.